Hello, everyone. And today we're going to read chapter 7 in Nathan Clarkson's book, Good Man. And the chapter is entitled Emotional. Perhaps our eyes need to be washed by our tears once in a while so we can see life with a clearer view again. Author unknown. I sat staring at the walls of my empty apartment. I could feel a ball of anxiety, anger, frustration, and hurt churning in my gut. I pushed it down. The space around me was covered with remnants of her, an old sweatshirt, a picture, CDs. Each item seemed to stare at me, telling me I had failed, reminding me of what I'd lost, prodding a deep sadness I could feel in my chest. I pushed it down. Out my window I saw the sun sink behind the shadowy Los Angeles hills, serving as a metaphor for my emotional state, unearthing the depression I had been trying with all my might to keep at bay. I pushed it down. I had been pushing it down for months as I watched my relationship with the person I had committed to spending the rest of my life with disintegrate after 5 years. I thought that maybe if I could just stay strong, keep a stiff upper lip, and be good enough, I could save us. Perhaps it was my English blood that kept me setting my brow, believing different variations of keep strong and carry on, and assuring myself I could make this right if I was strong enough. But I didn't feel strong. In fact, I felt tired and weak as I sat in my empty apartment for hours, with only my thoughts keeping me company. The occasional check-up phone calls from friends and family left me weary, and it was getting more difficult to keep the emotions at bay. One night I decided that I needed some fresh air. I stepped outside into the dry evening smog and began walking to my car. I didn't really have a plan, but I got in and started driving, windows down and music blaring, toward the Americana movie theater. Yeah, that's it, I told myself. I'll see a movie. Maybe that'll get my mind off these pesky emotions I've been fighting. With popcorn and candy in hand, I took my seat. I had avoided anything too heavy, no dramas that might tap at the fragile walls I had been building around my soul. Instead, I had decided on a new digital animated kids movie. Perfect, I told myself. Only mindless escapism here. As I was settling in, I noticed I was surrounded by hundreds of moms and kids. What a funny sight I must have been, a 6'3" man sitting among so many women and children. But the mom on the other side of me smiled at me and told me how much I would enjoy the flick, so I didn't worry too much about it. The movie started, and for a while, I happily escaped into the bright colors, childish humor, and wacky characters. It took place inside of a young girl's mind, where her emotions were personified by unique and engaging characters. I enjoyed the respite from the emotional war I had been waging, but then came the final scene, in which the characters' grief and joy discovered the only way to save the day was to embrace each other and face the painful reality of life together. Suddenly, I felt a lump rise from my chest to my throat. I tried to push it down, but as the music swelled and the story unfolded, I was no longer strong enough to win this fight. Not here, not now, I whispered in my mind, but it was too late. The tears had finally broken through my determined eyes and they were running down my face. I cried, and this time no amount of manly stoicism could stand against the current of emotion I had been running from all these months. I was finally set free from all the emotions that had held me captive for so long. I turned to the mom sitting next to me, who also had tears running down her face, and we meekly smiled at each other. I had finally given in and let the healing work of emotion take over. As I left the theater that night, I felt new and fresh, like the balloon I had held in my chest had finally popped. I could finally breathe. The sadness was still there. I was still going home to an empty apartment and an ambiguous future, but by letting go of the control I had so vehemently held onto for months, I knew I could keep moving forward. That healing waited for me. Real men don't cry. Like I mentioned briefly at the beginning of the book, I'm sure many of us have heard this sentiment in one form or another from a very young age. Maybe we heard it from our dads, brothers, or friends. Perhaps we heard it when we skinned our knees, and others pressured us to keep the tears at bay so as not to embarrass ourselves and let our pain be known in front of our peers. Perhaps we heard it when we were a little older and got our heart broken for the first time. Every time this insidious phrase wrapped around our throat like a vice, threatening us with labels we feared to own, such as weak, Even now, we repeat those words to ourselves as they echo in our heart and mind. When our world comes crashing down around us, we believe that real men don't feel or show emotion or cry. But by now, we have become experts at hiding those painful emotions. We have spent years pushing down and suppressing these weak displays of feeling. But like anything in life, the emotion, pain, and hurt doesn't disappear. They simply lie dormant in our souls and hearts. These other common tropes are also handed to us as boys. Man up. Crying is for girls. Stop being so emotional. No matter the specific words, they all serve one purpose, which is to pressure us into telling the world we are okay when inside we are not. We don't hear the truth that it's okay to not be okay. But these words that ring in so many of our minds have deeply affected our psyches and our ability to healthily process the deep emotions everyone feels. Eventually, we don't even know how to truly experience the very real emotions we were created to feel. At their core, emotions are indicators of our heart's condition. If we ignore them, like symptoms of a sickness, we only harm ourselves, allowing the cancer of a broken soul to eat away at us from the inside. It's hard to not allow this to happen when we are taught to deal with our pain by pushing it down and stuffing it inside so we're not viewed as helpless. In reality, we are helpless, just like every other human to walk this earth. But we continue to repress our emotions for the sake of pride, to protect our egos. We do it for safety so we won't have to deal with the discomfort of our pain. And we do it because we think it's what we're supposed to do to keep our world from falling apart. When we stuff our emotions, the pressure will grow and grow until we finally burst. Some men push their feelings down only to have those repressed emotions bubble up and burst, resulting in abuse, violence, and even self-harm and suicide. The ability to work through and face our emotions is literally an issue of life and death. Not letting our emotions take over and not giving in to our weaknesses can seem like okay things on the surface. There is good to be found in being resilient and resolute. I mean, who wants to be known as the weepy guy who can't take a punch? But at the end of the day, we're humans with emotions, and we were created to work through and feel rather than escape from. I deal with the temptation to run from my emotions almost every day because they are often painful and uncomfortable. They make me feel vulnerable, weak, small, and even fearful, when I so want to be untouchable, strong, big, and impervious. But the older I get, and the more life humbles me, I realize emotions don't hold me back from who I was created to be. They move me forward to become the better man God created me to be. The shortest verse in the entire Bible is, to me, perhaps the most powerful. Jesus wept. John 11:35. One of Jesus' closest friends, Lazarus, had died while he was away. Upon his return, Jesus was confronted with the news. Jesus, the all-powerful God of all creation in human form, didn't put on a stoic face and fix things. Instead, he dropped to his knees and cried. Jesus took the space and time to feel sadness deeply, to let his followers and close friends see his grief, and to grieve with them. And just a little while later, Jesus brought his friend Lazarus back to life. But he still wept, because he knew that fully feeling his emotions was a deeply important part of being human. And when he wept, it didn't weaken him. It was the necessary process for healing and new life to take place. I recently finished watching a TV show with a friend. Because we are poor, starving artists who can't go out like the cool kids, we needed something to binge watch, and the series we picked looked like a fun thriller. There's a running joke in the show where someone calls the secret agent in the middle of a mission as he's dodging bullets and running from explosions and asks how he's doing, to which the secret agent pauses for 1 second before replying, "Pretty good." But as the scenario repeats, it becomes heavier and heavier until you finally realize the secret agent is saying pretty good because he knows that's all he can say. In the final episode, when this agent has given up everything he loves, has bullet holes in his body, has lost his best friend, and been betrayed by his love, he receives a call from his handler who, ignorant of his current situation, asks, "How are you?" The agent, covered in blood and on the brink of death, replies as tears run down his face, "Pretty good." What I didn't expect at the end of this adventure show was to have a tear rolling down my cheek because I, on my couch, in my workout shorts, could see myself in the main character and felt so understood. No, I don't have blood covering my body. I haven't lost my best friend, and I haven't dodged any bullets. But I bear the heavy weight of a broken world. All too often when someone asks me how I am, I can feel myself pushing down all the painful emotions, gulping the tears that have been at bay for years, and doing what I can to not break. I often reply, pretty good. But maybe, for the sake of ourselves and the world, we can't say this any longer. Maybe we need to let ourselves feel, and, as scary as it is, let ourselves break so that we can be put back together. The thing is, our emotions will come out sooner or later, whether we like it or not. We can try to keep them in, or we can try to hold them down, but they will come out. And when we don't face and process them in healthy and healing ways, they will find a more destructive way out, one that almost always harms either ourselves or others. When we regularly suppress the painful emotions, we end up suppressing all our emotions. We push down the good with the painful and cut ourselves off from experiencing life's beautiful moments. For the survival of our souls, we need to find a safe place where we can fall apart. This place will be different for each of us. Perhaps it's in the presence of a therapist, pastor, family member, or friend. It's important to find ways to fully feel, cry, and express your real powerful emotions and pain. Though we live in a painful world of which we must process the emotions that arise out of our brokenness, it's also a wonderful world that invites us to feel deeply in beautiful moments of life too. To laugh loudly at an inside joke, to stand in awe of a starry sky over a roaring sea, to passionately sing our favorite song, and even to cry sweet tears during a touching moment. We need at all costs to release this harmful idea that real men don't cry. It's tired, it's worn out, it's regressive, it's wrong, and it's dangerous. It's not easy to let go of deeply ingrained ideas about how men are supposed to deal with pain and heartache, but to be truly good men, we need to learn to become tender. We need to start tearing down walls we've built around our hearts and minds and more fully embrace the beauty and strength that comes with honesty. We do this by authentically showing up and working through our feelings. By revealing our vulnerability in safe places, we open ourselves up to empathy, love, grace, and healing, all things we can offer to others who do the same. Facing our emotions isn't an easy thing we can learn to do overnight. Men have been struggling with this for thousands of years. I still have an anxiety attack when I look at a new script and see I have to fake cry for a scene. Some of my peers find it easy to tap into their feelings in order to realistically portray the heavy emotions of crying, but I find it hard to do. During those kind of scenes, I have to unlearn in a matter of moments the skills I've acquired through the years that help me push down my emotions. Instead, I must allow them to come up and be seen and felt. It's challenging, but necessary and worthwhile. And when we begin this process, we will see how wonderful it is to feel things, how it moves us forward, and how it adds to rather than detracts from our strength. Next time you watch a touching movie, see a beautiful night sky covered with stars, listen to a meaningful song, or go through a breakup, a move, or a death, when you fear a tear in the corner of your eye or a lump in your throat, don't push it down. Your body and your heart are working together to help you through. Let it free and feel the strength and relief that come from fully experiencing the emotions you were created to feel. The experience will bring strength, healing, and peace. So perhaps the world will carry on the lie that real men don't cry, but I can assure you, good men do. Questions for reflection. Number 1, do you view men who show their emotion and cry as weak or strong? Number 2, do you have a hard time expressing or showing your emotions? Why or why not? Number 3, how can you learn to work through your emotions rather than stuff them down? Jesus wept. John 11:35. A prayer for the emotional. God, the creator of our bodies and souls, our thoughts and emotions, help us learn to feel fully what you have designed us to feel. Jesus said, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted by you." And we want connection with you, so let us not run away from our feelings, but learn to let them lead us to you. Teach us that true strength involves vulnerability. We don't need to escape from the sadness and brokenness of the world, but to use them to better know you and ourselves. As we face our deep and dark emotions, please be present in them. Heal us from the hurt and give us wisdom to help others do the same. Walk with us through our lament. Speak to us in our sadness. Meet us in our mourning and lead us to new life. Amen. And that is the end of the chapter. I find this chapter very, very important because I have 2 daughters and 1 son. And I also am a single mom, so my son's dad is not around. And it's hard. It's hard, I think, to be a man in today's society. And as this book says, for hundreds of years, men have been told to stuff things down, to not cry, to be strong, to man up, to not be a sissy. But it's dangerous. It is, because God made you to have emotions. If men weren't supposed to cry, then you wouldn't have the ability to cry. If men weren't supposed to feel sad, then you wouldn't have the ability to feel sad. God made you. And He made you to have emotions. He made women to have emotions. We both have emotions. We both have to feel. It's no different than us both needing to eat or to sleep. Don't push it down. You need to tear down those walls, like Nathan said. You need to fully embrace that emotion that will cause you to sometimes cry. And it doesn't mean you don't have strength. In fact, you show strength when you are okay with showing your true emotions and show that you aren't worried about what other people think. You need to be vulnerable and open yourself up in safe places, whether it is a pastor or a family member or a friend. If you can't show your vulnerability in front of those people, then are they really your friend? And a family member and a pastor should be okay with you showing your true emotions, because if they truly love you, they want to know what your true emotions are to help you through it. I hope you guys really think about this. To be a good man means that you have to use everything God gave you, and He gave you your emotions. Please open up to someone. I'm here too. I hope you all have a great week. God bless you, and see you next week.